Welcome
Hi.
to our podcast. This is Neil Strange and Alex Higgs. We're here to talk about all things data engineering and data warehousing. And today's topic is about defining success. Um, Very important topic, I think, in terms of getting a good handle on what you're going to try and achieve on a project and setting up the conditions for ensuring a successful outcome. You've talked about this at the Worldwide Data Vault Conference, I think, in Vermont, and
Yes.
also our local one here in London. Maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit more about what you were talking about at these conferences.
Yeah. So just before we go any further, we previously on this podcast has spoken about failure conditions, and I think kind of looking at you know
Mm.
you to, you can kind of almost define them as opposites of each other, right? So you can say for success, avoid these failure conditions. For failure,
Yeah,
avoid these
but
success
to be
conditions.
honest, I mean, I have a sometimes worry that if you overtalk the negative aspects of a project, you're almost like daring them to happen,
Well,
and it's going to
yeah, of
happen on
course,
you.
yeah.
So people sometimes feel better about the positive things. So kind of what we're saying, instead of saying don't do this, we're kind of saying do this instead. Do the positive
Absolutely,
stuff, and
yeah.
let's build on that.
But it's important to acknowledge how failure can occur for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
So what does success look like?
yeah. So success looks like it's all about making sure people are aware of once you define success in your project, which we'll get onto.
Mm-hmm.
It's important that every person in the team in the project understands what the conditions for success are. What are we actually aiming for?
Mm-hmm.
What do the key stakeholders actually want? What are their achieve? What do we want to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
If everyone knows what we want to achieve, then they can avoid doing things that don't achieve that. So that's even like okay, well not even
Mm-hmm.
doing some work because that's not
Mm.
conducive to our aims, things like that. Um,
So
yeah.
one thing I've seen there is because as a BI team, you might work in a number of areas of the business. So you might do a bit in finance, a bit in HR, a bit
Mm-hmm.
in the production side of the business. Um, if you don't know how those parts of the business work, it's quite difficult to empathise with what you're doing for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have seen some of the highest performing teams where they actually they'll go to induction courses on how these parts of the business work. Some even take qualifications,
Yeah.
even though they're never going to practice in there. They like, for example, I see this often in insurance businesses where there's such a very specific vocabulary used there that those BI engineers will take an exam, early exams in insurance, just to get a feel for the language and
It's
the
important.
processes involved.
Yeah, it's important to speak their language and be on their page, right? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, how can you do financial analytics if you don't understand how double entry bookkeeping works or how a general ledger works?
Oh, don't get me
No,
started. Yeah.
no, exactly. So, okay, so that's good. So, success is about understanding the business, understanding the language, and realizing you're part of a bigger team now.
Having an understanding of what the shared goal of the project is,
Mm-hmm.
and to achieve that, of course, you need things like documentation. You need clearly defined scope and requirements to
Mm-hmm.
understand what boundaries are being worked within here to
Mm-hmm.
achieve the goal.
Yep.
And I've previously said even getting engineers involved in conversations with stakeholders, if we're talking about requirements, if we're talking about okay, what does this specific feature need to do, having the engineers involved to be able to say okay, actually that's possible, that's not possible, it means you're reducing the risk of something being agreed at a higher level and the engineers running around trying to figure out how to do it, for example.
So almost having them sit in the room when decisions are being
Yeah,
made. Okay.
it's one thing that can be done to help. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that if you have a big team, that's going to be a bit awkward. But
Yeah, which comes
yeah,
down, which comes into actually having a smaller team is better to in
sort of
order to achieve
working
this.
as a unit.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So what else drives success?
That's a good point. So I think uh, automating as much as possible, and this is very much from an engineer's perspective
Mm-hmm.
here, is if you can save time and focus on the kind of the 5 to 10% that's different, and that's going to produce business value, and you can automate kind of the stuff leading up to being able to do that work, then it frees you up for focusing on that business value stuff.
So I guess this comes back to like the lean manufacturing approach on things, where you're supposed to clean and get rid of as much waste as you can. Whenever you find it, address it, automate it, have a place for everything in there.
Yeah.
And while each little thing you clean up doesn't seem to be worth the effort, actually, if you clean a few things up, the cumulative impact on that's quite significant.
Absolutely, and we get into I think that leads us on to the realm of tech debt, right? And it's quite a well known. It's almost a joke at this point in the industry of you never get time to clean up tech debt, right? There's always tech debt, and unless you allocate time, of course you're never going to have time. So that's another thing for success.
Well, I do. I see that manifest itself as things like they never quite get round to upgrading the version of the software you're using, or you're getting you've written software, you keep getting these little ping messages saying you're dependent on a library that may have a security violation in it. You never quite get round to refreshing that.
Exactly. And what if one of the requirements or one of the deal breakers for the project is compliance and security? And if you're not able to have time for updating or doing those kinds of things, then that's immediately a failure condition.
Tech debt has a habit anyway of just lurking in the background, and then when you're at the maximum stress, when you just got to get something done, that's when it fails on you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So it's famous like Jenga architecture. You keep putting the thing on top, and eventually it will fall over on you.
Yeah. So I think my point there is you have to make time for fixing tech debt, even if it's one day in the sprint. Making time, getting through it slowly is better than not getting through it at all.
Yes, I full-heartedly agree on that. Yeah, okay. So time for that. You said documentation, that's fine. Being aware of what's going on in the project is fine. That's all necessary. So it's kind of like making sure the team feels engaged in the process rather than just turning up 9 to 5 to do some technical work.
Getting people involved.
Okay.
If they don't know they're walking into a failure scenario, then it's almost not on them really. They're doing what they're asked to do. As far as they're concerned, they're doing the right thing. If they're not aware, then
but they lack the context to make a judgment call.
Exactly. It's all about context.
Okay. All right. Well, very much for today. This has been Neil Strange and Alex Higgs talking about the success criteria or successful projects. We are. Please check out the links on the page next to the screen here for further learning and getting in touch with us. And we look forward to seeing you at a future episode. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.